Okay, I think we are ready. I can see people are dropping in. It would be awesome if one of you guys in the chat could tell if you can hear us. Alfred says yes.
Alfred says yes.
Okay, then let's just get started slowly while the last people drop in. Hi, and thank you so much for joining us today for this Perfion Update Q2 2025. We're here to talk about the newest release of Perfion, which is coming, unfortunately, probably not this week, but hopefully next week. We do have a few minor things we want to have fixed before we push it out the door. But next week, we definitely hope to have it ready by then. Uh, I know for some of you guys, this is probably a bank holiday, so we want to say an extra thank you for you guys to drop in. Couple of things first. Let's start with some introductions. I'm a new face in these webinars. It used to be my good colleague Jesper Gede who does these, but he has moved on to a different role. He's still in our company, hopefully and thankfully. But I've taken over his responsibilities, so I'll do my very best to live up to try to fill his shoes. With me today, I got Jan Franke and I got Stephen Rainbow. Jan Franke is our solution architect. He's going to talk about some of the little more technical aspects, which I will be out my depth to talk about. And I got Stephen with me, who's going to do some demos of some of the very cool things we have in the release this week. In this webinar geek, there should be a chat, and you can feel free to write questions during the presentations. We'll also do a little Q&A session at the end of the webinar, but if you've got any questions, please just write them in the chat, and we'll try to take them when appropriate. Okay. The agenda for today, we're going to talk about our Perfion 5.6 released R1 2025 and what we have included in that one. What you see here is some of the highlights. We have a new concept about a new service account and some new access types. We got some integration with DeepL and glossaries, which is very cool, and Stephen is going to show. Then we got a new import wizard, which is also very nice, and Stephen is going to show that. And then we got one of the very, very big headlines for this release is the Perfion Content Store, a completely new product which we're launching, which is a new self-service portal where you can expose your assets, your product data, your media, your files to both internal colleagues, but also to external parties. And I'm going to do a demo of that, give a good walkthrough of that. Then last, we're going to look at the roadmap for the 2025. We're going to do things a little different this year. And then Jan is going to end up with some deprecations, what we are removing from Perfion. So what is included in our Perfion 5.6 release, the very first release of this year? Unfortunately, not everything that we hope to include, but we do have some really good stuff in it. I'm just going to give a quick run through of some of the headlines. The first one is the DeepL glossary. So now you can do some preferred translations. You can reserve keywords when you use these built-in functionalities to DeepL to do your translations. We got some big update to the supplier portal where you can now not only expose your products, but also extra entities such as material colors, supplier materials, and more complicated data such as swap relation tables and bill of materials. Then we got the content store. We'll talk a lot more about that in a minute. We got the new service account where you can have a dedicated users for API. So you don't longer have to reserve the admin users to do stuff the admin users shouldn't do. Then we got the import wizard, which will allow you to import any file, any Excel file you have, and do some mapping directly in the UI without doing an action to import it. What we missed, unfortunately, is the notifications. We want to include the option for you guys to be able to tag other users to make it easier to collaborate about your product data. Unfortunately, we didn't get the chance. We weren't able to get this in this release, and that's why we're doing a small summer release this year. So hopefully you have that included in there. We also hope to have the start of what we call the Boyum framework rework. That's sounds a bit weird, but what the idea is that now that we are a Boyum company, we want Perfion to also look like a Boyum product. So there's going to be a new look for Perfion coming. To start with, it's going to be mainly the administration tab. We're not changing any functionality. We might improve the UI here and there, but the general idea is just a new look for the Perfion application. Now, A couple of things I will only talk about, not show. The supplier portal will now allow you to expose multiple base features. Up until now, with the supplier portal, you have only been able to expose your products, your main items. That's great. That's solves most of the use cases for most customers, but we do have some customers who also need to expose other base entities. Maybe they have very different products, they have some main products, they have some accessories which need a completely different set of data from the suppliers. This will allow them to do that. We can also allow suppliers to maintain their own list of colors and materials, etc. And it's also the start of allowing suppliers to maintain bill of materials, bundles, and ingredients list, etc. That will still require a little extra action work in the background, but now we do actually have it possible to do this. Another minor thing is that we have improved how we work with FTP in actions. Previously, when you create an FTP command in an action, it always created a new connection. So if you had a big action that first did a get file list, then some downloads, then some deletes, and then some uploads, then that would create a new connection every time. And that was not ideal. You could run in some different limitations. So for now, we make sure that when a connection is opened, we will always reuse that. And when the action ends, we'll make sure to terminate all of the open ones. That should greatly improve how it is to work with FTP connections and actions. We got a new concept about access types and serving accounts. Jan, will you give a recap of that?
Certainly. So yeah, we introduced a new property here called access type, where you can set on users if they're allowed to use the clients or only the API and application server for that matter. So the idea is that you can use your isolate your user accounts. So the users, physical users that you have, only are allowed to actually access the front end, so the web client or the Windows client, and then you can have a separate service account, which I'll talk about in a minute, that can only log on to the API and the application server and not the clients. So that way you can isolate your user group a little bit in terms of what they can access. So we have client only, service only, and then we have the client and service, which correspond to what users can do today. So during migration, all your existing users will be migrated to this access type called client and service. And then afterwards you can go in and limit access if you want. We introduced a new property here called last logon as well. So you can now see which or when a particular user was last logged on. So in that sense, you can then determine if that user can be removed from or deactivated, of course. And then more excitingly, last bit here, we are introducing a new built-in service account. So as you probably know, we have the built-in admin account that every installation comes with. We now have a service account as well, which comes, you can say, free of charge. All licenses include this account. And that is a service-only user. We strongly suggest, of course, that you change your API and application settings to use the service account user instead of the admin account. And this way around, when you update your password on the admin account, you won't see service outages because of that. So a few new properties there to have a look at.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's really nice, especially for some of our smaller customers who doesn't have a lot of users. It's really nice to be able to have a dedicated user to handle all of the background stuff, so you don't reserve the very powerful admin user for that.
Exactly.
Okay, Stephen, the DeepL Glossary.
Yes, thank you. So I will share my screen. Bear with me a sec, please, and I will choose to share my entire screen. Okay. DeepL Glossary is something that a number of customers have approached us about. So you may well be aware that we have two services that we natively integrate with for the purposes of data translation. That's Google Translate and DeepL. And DeepL has this concept of glossaries, which, as Jeppe mentioned before, is the ability to provide specific translations. So you've got that guaranteed consistency when you are initiating some translations. So you can ensure that when company jargon or industry specific terminology, perhaps where acronyms are used, that they're not incorrectly translated when you send them off to the DeepL service. Furthermore, you can use it for terms that you would not necessarily want translated. So the glossaries are used and they're applied however you access and utilize Perfion. So if you're initiating a translation from a cell within the web client, within the grid, that's fine, it will work there. When it comes to the setup, currently that's only in the Windows client. We'll see how that's set up. We're in the settings tab on the screen that you can see now. The last tab is translations. Previously, we just have had the drop down where you would have the selection for the particular service that you were using, either Google Translate or DeepL, and the API key. So now just below there, we can see where we can edit the glossaries that you can have. And the concept of a glossary involves this language pair, so the source language and the destination language. To add a new glossary, you click on the new glossary button and then add in the terminology, set that up by defining the source language and the target language. You can only have one glossary per language pair. So if you were to, we don't have the ability, based on the capabilities of the API, to store more than one glossary per language pair. So please be aware of that. And this is stored within the DeepL account. So it's not stored locally within the Perfion database at all. We're purely interacting with the API here, and whenever you're translating, we'll look up this list here to establish if there are any bespoke or specific translations that the service needs to make based on the entries in the glossary. Let's see that in action now. Okay, so here is my web client, and I've introduced the subheader, which is a localizable feature for my items into the grid. And I've also exposed the German and the French languages. So if I was to right click, for example, and translate this now, I have the French translation, new Perfion product. So currently I don't actually have an English-French glossary at all. So let's put some terms in there and see how that changes and impacts the subsequent translation. So I will come out to full screen, switch over to my Windows client, and this translation section, add a new glossary, just call it ENFR, source language, and then you use the ISO language code, English to French in my case. My glossary is going to be new. I'm not going to translate. In terms of the formats and the structure of this glossary, it's simple. It's only one of two choices. It's either tab separated or comma separated. I'm going to go with tab separated here. And based on the fact that I'm saying new is translated to new, that's effectively me saying I don't want this to be translated. And let's convert Perfion to Boyum, shall we, just to see the impact of that. And we'll save. So that's then now sent over via the API and stored in my DeepL account. So whenever I'm utilizing that service, that glossary will be applied. So switch back to the web client, translate again. And we can see that for some reason didn't quite work on new. I'll just try that again. But we can see that that will the German translation will remain unaffected. and we can see there that we're still translating with Perfion. Come back in and let's try something slightly different. New product from Perfion. Translate in French. Okay. I have to do a bit of troubleshooting there because I can assure you what happened yesterday was the response from the DeepL service was that we're not translating the news. So that's something that we'll need to take a look at. But clearly you can see that we've gone down to the second entry in that glossary. And despite having Perfion in here, originally that was translated as Perfion. It's now being translated as expected to become Boyum. Okay, so let us now move on to the import wizard. Minimize here, and then come back into my slideshow. What is the import wizard? Well, you may be aware that in recent versions, we have had an overhaul of the code base for the import wizard because we've spotted that some of our customers that are really stress testing and pushing the limits of the Perfion application, when they've had lots of imports that are happening, perhaps synchronizations that happen overnight. There's tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of products to be imported, that the current importer was perhaps reaching the limitations of its capabilities. There was a lot of overlapping of imports and they were taking an inordinate amount of time to complete. It was impacting the system. So there was pretty much a ground or revisit of the way that the import technology and functionality works. That's actually been rolled out previously and available via an action command. So you could use a slightly different action command, import.featureData, that would call the new code base. And that's proven to be to dramatically improve the import times from some of the existing synchronizations that our customers have had. Now it's available with a GUI front end via the import wizard. So another driver for this was to make it far more user-friendly to onboard data into the system, particularly for first-time users. And one of the limitations of the previous process was that you needed to have a one-to-one mapping between the column headers in your import datasheet and into the features that it was going to import into. So this wizard allows you to have a mapping interface that we can see in the screenshot here. It gives you the capability to then select which of the columns will be imported into which specific features. So there's a number of improvements that we've brought to the application here as far as the import wizard is concerned. So let's see it in use. I'll switch back to my demo server and I'll just go to my item view here. Okay. So for these items here, we can see we've got 5 coffee machines. There's 3 of them that need some enrichment. So let's do that. And I'm going to do that from this particular import file here. And we can see that it's not typical in the sense that we're not starting from the first cell. So let's see how the import wizard handles that. We've got a couple of rows that are representing my header before we actually get into the data. And we don't necessarily have the feature names as the column headers. So I'll invoke the import wizard from the tools menu. It sits alongside the original importer and they will remain in parallel for some time. And we've got the ability to either drag and drop or click browse to upload. And I'll upload the import example that I showed you just before. So a new feature is also the capability to import images alongside the data file. So previously, you've had the capability to be able to specify either a local path or the path of assets that exist on the web, and Perfion will go away and grab those images as part of the import process and onboard them into Perfion alongside those items. In this example, what we're doing is we're supplying a zip file of assets, and the import file, bring it back for a second, the image name there will be used to look up the file within that zip to attach it and associate it with the item that I'm importing. So simple 4-stage process. That's stage 1 complete, either dragging and dropping or browsing to select the data file, and optionally you can add some images to that as well. So as you can see, we do have some smarts in there, that in the sense that we're not defaulting to the first row and the second row in terms of the header row and data row. We've actually done some analysis of the data file and made a very intelligent suggestion that the header row is going to be contained on the third row, because we've analyzed row 1 and 2. Row 3 seems like the most likely candidate, and then we're not assuming that the data starts below that. We've then seen that the data is most likely to start on row 5. You can change that if it's not quite 100% correct, but it is in our case, in our example. We will go to 100 and select the products as the base feature to import into, and then I'll move on to the mapping screen. So where the import wizard has recognized a one-to-one mapping in the import file with a feature name, we've ticked import for that, and we've auto-created that mapping. That includes where we have a language suffix, and then we've got the correct language that's been defined. But here's where we really differ from the existing import functionality, in that even though we weren't able to match up certain columns, we can define that mapping here. So I'm going to choose to import item name. It is localizable, so I'll specify the language. Same here for EAN code. That isn't localizable, so that's basically grayed out. I'll just stop there for the moment and go to next. Now, at this 4th stage, there is some pre-import validation checks that include things like ensuring that the data that's been supplied is indeed localizable, and if it is being defined as going to a localizable field. So that just means you're far more likely to have more success when it comes to importing. If I just go back for a moment and take a look at these advanced import options, we'll see more flexibility that we've built into the import process. So you've got the capability to change the key column, which has defaulted to be the first column, but that can be any column within the datasheet. Feature validation, this is new. So you've got the ability to create the values if you have some validation in place. So that's where, against the feature, you've perhaps got some regex validation, or you've got some threshold validation for numbers, and that's set to be hard validation that shows up with the red box. Previously, that was it was really a black or white in terms of we would always apply that validation. Now you have the ability to import that data anyway, and of course it will be flagged and highlighted for you, prompting you to then make that change because it's breaching the validation. Unknown selectable values is we're going to stop the import as the default option, and that is the equivalent of selectable validation that we've had previously in the original importer. Multi-values, will merge values, so if the import file has red and blue as the color list, and we're importing into an item that has yellow and green, then all merged together you'll have red, yellow and green ultimately against that item once the import process is complete. Empty cells exist as it always did, whether we keep and preserve data that's in Perfion if we come across missing values within the import data sheet. And then this is a fantastic option when it comes to importing previously, you've had to rely on selectable feature validation if you only want to target existing products. We've kind of decoupled that here. So we're looking at selectable validation for the key column name, if you like. So if we come across new items, do we create them? Do we ignore them? So that's the new option, or do we stop? So that's a great way to confidently be able to import a huge file that you may have confidence in the fact that you will only be updating with your import and not creating any new items regardless of what's in the import sheet. And then some formatting as well. So if I hit next and then import, I've got an error. And if I click through, selectable feature color has no item with the value X black in the database. That was some deliberate selectable validation that I breached there. I just wanted to highlight the fact that this is fantastic in my opinion. It's telling you the precise cell in which that erroneous data exists, cell 6,1 or F5. That's where the data is. We go back over here, and indeed there it is. I'll remove that, and then I can go through that import process again. But I won't put you through that, as you can expect. I'll just go through the mapping again. Now, do you know what I will do very briefly, because I want to introduce those images back in. So tools, import wizard, browse, and then browse for the image file. And next, 3.5, import to 100. Next. What we're looking at for the next iteration of the import wizard is for it to have the capability to be able to save, share, and reuse these mappings. Going to import, yes, yes, yes. Import. And then did I save the? I think I didn't save, but I think you know what's going to happen at this point. So what I'll do at this juncture is hand back to Jeppe for the next part of the session.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that demo.
Content Store.
Yes. We just got a question about if you'll be able to save these mappings for the next import. We don't have it right now, but it is coming, because we know, especially if you have these very large imports, then you don't want to do those 500 mappings every time. So we will have the option of saving and reusing these mappings. How that's exactly going to list is still a little undetermined, but we'll be able to, as Stephen said, save these mappings, share them with the colleagues, and be able to reuse them, and make sure that they get a name that you can recognize, so you know that this is the template for Excel sheet from supplier ABC or such. Okay, I'll share my screen again. And thank you, Stephen, for those demos. And now on to the content store. I think Jesper already presented this idea some time ago, but now it's finally here. We've spent a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on this one, and finally it's here, and we are very satisfied with this product. I want to give like a brief introduction to what the content store is and why we've developed it before I dive into the introduction of both how your end user is going to use it, the guys who are actually going to log on to the store and download the data, but also want to give a little introduction to how this is configured, because it's actually fairly simple to configure, So what we see here in this screenshot is a typical Perfion setup as it would look today. We got a connection to an AP system, we expose the products to some e-commerce sites, we have some prints, some catalogs, and then we do a various data exports and imports to different sources. The content store is a completely new addition to this. So it will be a new license. It's a new product, a new add-on you can buy to Perfion. And essentially what it is, it's a channel or self-service portal where Perfion clients can expose their product informations or digital assets. So that could be your files, your images, what other media you have to download by external or internal parties. You can have more than one. So by default, you can buy one content store, but you can add in as many as you want and so many as you need. You control. Let's get into the configuration data. So when we designed this, we had three main use cases in mind. There are many ways this can be used, but these are like the three main areas where we wanted to work. The first one is an internal content store within your own company. You got a marketing department, you got a sales department, you got a back-end office who all work together and need your product data. We want to make sure that the content store is a good solution for you guys to access this data. It's not always, if you just need to download a collection of images, a collection of product data, going into Perfion and finding these products and download it might not always be the most efficient way. The content store can be a great way of making sure that your internal colleagues have a good way to access the product data without any hassle. That makes it easy to set up. Then they don't need a Perfion user with read access. You can save a little on your license there, but also make sure that you can control very detailed who your internal clients have, what they have access to. Next part is that we want to make it an external content store for B2B partnerships. Make sure that your external partners, they have access to the product data and assets that they need. And you can control on a fairly detailed level who has access to what in this content store. Finally, you have the option of making this a public portal. So if you want to expose all of your product data to all your images, all your media to the whole world, to PR firms, to marketing agencies around the world, you can do that. Make a public content store where everybody can access and download the data that you decide that should be public. Now, onto the demo. I start by sharing this one here. So what you see here is the login screen, and we have a lot of options for customizing what you see here. Specifically right here, you can customize the background. You of course give the shop a new name and you have a logo add in. And you can also create users. So when I click login, oh, my session was run out. We see the front page of the content store. The design is quite simple, but it allows for some pretty powerful functionality. In the main view here, you have the option of searching. This is a different search than what you're probably used to in Perfion. You're used to in Perfion that you set up specific features you want to search for, and then you match exactly that. This one here is built on a new component for us called Elasticsearch, which allow us to do some more fuzzy search. So if I search for pots with a capital S, then it will find anything that matches this, even if it's not the exact match. So it will find also my oval pots. I can search for coffee, and it will find both coffee makers, of course, but also some coffee products, some cups down here, because there's somewhere in this information we have of these cups here that matches coffee. And of course, coffee and some lifestyle images. Now, if you're familiar with the Perfion demo database, many of you guys have probably seen that many times. We know that this is a product, this is an image, two different separate entities in Perfion, but we can expose those in the same way here. So both products, file libraries, image libraries, this can all be exposed in the same content portal. Now, besides searching for stuff, you can also navigate it. I have my Boyum collection here. When I click on this main view, then I see everything beneath here. And if I click on just my cups, I'll only see the cups here. So it's a quite easy way to navigating and finding what you're looking for. Then when you go in here, you can also decide what should your user be able to refine their search on. So let's say we only want the black products of a specific brand. We only have one brand here. That's fine. Then I can select one of my items, and I can browse through all of the data I have in this one. It is all controlled by you, which features from Perfion you want to expose. So here we have the description, we have what collection it is, some product information, and we can navigate the different media we have in this, some lifestyle images, and some user guides. And I can download each of these files individually if I want to, or I can add it to my collection. So you can see this one is already added. We can add this one here. If I just wanted everything, I can click select all, remove all, and this way I built this little basket, kind of like when you're looking at Zalando or the e-commerce service, you navigate the shop, find what you're looking for, and when you're ready, you can check out. Before I check out, you can get a little preview. Is this correct? Is this what I actually wanted? It is. So let's click that, and now decide which information of what I've selected am I interested in. For this one, let's take the English and the German translations of the data. Let's take the image type as they originally are, and the same with the images, and say OK. Now, this might be a very big download. There can be a lot of content in that, and that can take some time for the server on the backend to prepare. So if you don't want to wait for that, you can just say, hey, send me an email when it's ready. And then I will get an email, hopefully quite soon. While we wait for that to tick in, I want to show you that when you're here, you have some additional options. Let's go back to our assets. I have a tab here called Terms and Conditions. That's all customizable. You would have 10 different tabs in here with some different information about your company, terms and conditions, whatever you need. And any of what you have here can also be translated. And just like inside of Perfion, you can decide what should the interface language be. So maybe I want to navigate the UI in German, but the data I still want in English. Or maybe I want all of it in German. This is all set up inside of Perfion. You don't need to do any additional configurations in the content store. It's all handled by what you already have in the Perfion backend. Now let's see if I have received an email. I have. So let's download this. There we are. When we download this, we get a zip file. It will contain this here. One folder for all of my files, one for all of my images. They will be stored with the file name as they are in Perfion. And then I will get one Excel sheet for each different languages I chose. So I chose English and German, so I get an English and a German language file. And if we look at that, this will simply contain all of the data that you decide to expose to the content store. So of course, you'll have all of the information, but you'll also have the images. So this one here has a Boyum group JPEG as the group image. And that image you will also find in the file library here. So I still have the connection between the images and their files, the products and the files. Let's go back to the content store. There. Now, I'm going to show you how this can be set up in the backend. So when you have a content store in your license, let's go in here. Then if you have content store in your license, then you will have a new tab down here in the web client. It is configured in the web client only. You can access all of the content stores you have set up on your system. So you see, I have quite a lot set up in here. The only thing I can always guarantee is that you will have a tab here called Organizations and Users, where you can manage your organizations and users. We'll get to that in a bit. And then you'll have one section here for each of the content stores you manage. Now, let's have a look at the one called Coffee and More, because that's my content store. That's the one I'm managing. If we click on settings here, we can see it's decently simple to set up. You need to give it a name. That would be what you see in the tab here. It will what you see in the front page. You can customize the URL some, so it will always be hosted by us. So there is some part of the URL you cannot control, but you can also give a name to some part of the service you want to make sure that it matches what you want to show. Then you can control the access. Should you have restricted access or public access? Let's keep it restricted for now. You can decide which interface languages you want the users to be able to navigate in, and you can decide the data languages you want the users to use. And that's based on what you have active in your Perfion. So if you manage your product in English and Italian, these are the language you'll be able to expose the data in. Then you need to select a category feature. That is how the product should be categorized in here on the left-hand side. And one thing, this is a bit different than how Perfion normally uses it, is that if you have both products, like these cups here, but you also have instruction manuals or lifestyle images, like these down here, they will all use the same categorizer. It's a little different than how we do it, but it makes for a clean UI when you navigate the content store. Then you have a few options for customizing the content store. You can add your logo, a header, and a background image. And you can create a little theme color of how you want it to see. Before I dive into the items, I want to show the custom pages. They are fairly simple to set up. You click Add New, edit one you already have, give it a title, and then write the text in rich text, where you can put in anything using simple rich text formatting. And these are what you will see in the top here. Now it disappeared because I didn't have it in German, I think. Yeah, there we go. Now, the most difficult part of the setup is probably here, where you decide which items do you want to expose. In this setup I have here, I have products, we have images, and we have files. If I click on products, you have some options for some display names. Maybe you want to give the products in WebShip that different names than the one you have internally. Maybe you call it items in your own backend, but on the front end, you like to have it called products or articles, something like that. In settings, we need to decide the base feature. So what is it we want to expose? In this case, products, a title feature and a subtitle feature, and then a primary image feature. And that matches if we go back to a content store. What we see here, so this would be the primary image. We have the title feature and we have the subtitle feature. Want to expose. This is also where you decide what you want to be able to use as these search facets. So here I have the brand name, and that's why when I'm on my products, I can filter by brand name. The item filter is probably the most difficult part of this one, and we do apologize for that. It was our intention to create a simpler way of building that. You can see we have advanced mode here. We don't have simple yet, unfortunately. But this is where you build this Perfion API queries. And I know many of our Perfion admins are somewhat familiar with this one. One thing to note is that it's only this part here that's actually respected. You do have the option in a normal query to specify a max count and some additional options up here, but it's only the filter down here that's actually respected. So this is where you want to put in what are the criteria for when a product or an image needs to expose to the content store. This setup you do for each of the page features you want to expose, and that's it. The only things missing is back in the Windows client, you have a scheduled job that needs to start to run every time you want to update this. This could be every minute, it could be once per day. That's up to you. It depends how often you want to make sure that the new content you have in your Perfion is added to the content portal. Now, besides that, how to actually publish this, making sure that you get the correct products and the correct channels, that's all what we would say is fairly standard. I would recommend creating a channel for it, where you can manage your different sections and you decide which items goes into that sections here. The only thing that's a bit different is that this will be the same channel used for both products, but also for images. It's no problem to set up in Perfion. It's just a bit different than how we're used to doing it. I think that was everything that I wanted to show and tell about the content store. Then the boring or interesting part, depending on your perspective, is the pricing. So the base price would be 500 euros a month. That's for one content store with 1 terabyte of storage that you can store 1 terabyte of data in the content store. And also 1 terabyte can be downloaded from the content store every month. Then you can do some additional storages. You can buy additional stores, additional storage, depending on what your need is. One thing that's a bit different than this one compared to our other the other Perfion Boyum products is that this will always be a SaaS solution. This will always be something that we host. We don't offer you the chance for you to download this on your own service if you are an on-premise customers. And a little extra for you guys who are using the asset portal. So the asset portal will run out of maintenance at the end of 2025. But if you have paid your maintenance for the asset portal, then you are eligible for a migration to the content store. Besides that, from 2026 and onwards, it will be a new subscription that's required. So please reach out to your partner or to a channel manager to agree upon that. A bit about the timeline. So the kickoff, the launch of this is today, or when this release is coming out the door, hopefully next week. We do have some pilot products running right now. We're testing out the system, getting some initial feedback. Some of the experience we get from that is what we are hopefully launching in a version 1.1 of the content store, which will hit July 2025, if all goes well. Besides that, we do have some couple of minor service fixes coming in a patch here in the R1 Service 1 release coming at the end of next month, I believe. And again, as this is a different product than we used to do, this is a full SaaS solution. We do have some options to do continuous roll-off of new features. So if we have something that's only affected directly in the front end of the content store, we can actually deploy these fixes as we go along without being reliant on a major Perfion upgrade. Yes. Stephen, did you have something? Yes.
I do, yes.
Okay, so we are breaking the agenda a bit because Stephen, he wanted to just show a couple of cool things that we can do with Perfion.
Okay, thank you. So screen share. Whilst you've just been telling us about the portal, let me just return very briefly to the translate that didn't work before. I think it's important to suggest that you perhaps go to the DeepL page and take a look about their information on glossaries. They say it's more than a simple find and replace, because it understands the context and how the word is changed in my glossary. So it's at least not exactly the same phrase that word that I'm translating, so we can see them. It's converted it to uppercase. So that's just an interesting demonstration of how DeepL have applied their glossary technology. But actually moving on to where we've taken some of the elements that we've introduced in our previous release webinars, and we've incorporated them into our standard demo when we do pre-sales and we speak to prospects. We really like to showcase the functionality that we're continually developing, and some of the recent aspects that we've done with the application is context actions, and we'll walk through those, and some integrations with ChatGPT as well. So let me go to this dashboard over here, and we'll take a look at these validation errors. So with validation errors, that's now been incorporated into the API, so we can automatically and dynamically read items that have these validation errors, surface them on a dashboard widget, and click through. So here we have all caps not allowed. So we've got a context action that will convert these into title case. Now some of these will drop off and disappear because they will no longer have a validation, but that won't be the case for all of them. So let me just right click and go to execute action on product. So that's that context action that I was talking about, and that will send these items from the grid through to the action for the action to process. And this action will be to convert all caps to title case. I'll do that for all of the items in the grid. And as mentioned before, most of those have dropped away. These were originally on there. If I just go to previous values, we can see that was previously in full caps, and it's now been converted. It remains on here because there's an additional violation, this height violation here. And if I refresh, indeed, it is just the 2 left. So what else do we have in terms of those context actions that we're working with? If I change my dashboard, I'll move over here, we've got some master data non-approved. So if I go in to take a look at those 5 items, and I'll just freeze this column and scroll across. We've got this primary packaging here. So if I look down this item section, we've got a packaging section, and what we've done within the feature data is we've created a template that represents the packaging that's required for this item, and that is going to be attached to these items as a swap relation table. So let me now right click and execute action on product, and that is to attach the template. I'll do that for all of these items. And the nice thing is that the template is category specific. So as you might imagine, there's different packaging requirements for the ceramic cups as there are for the coffee machines, as indeed there are for something completely different. So if I refresh, here's the swap table that's been added, which includes all of this metadata and reference data, related data, based on these selections that have been made. That means all that's left for me to do is just simply add in the relevant weight, 120 grams, which is an amazing way to be able to store information around sustainability and recyclability of all your product information, if indeed you need to report on that. 100 grams. And of course, something that we've also recently introduced is the ability to copy and paste within the grid and swap relation tables, and just like any of the other entities like images and files and so on. Okay, so let's approve those and then move on to the next stage. Marketing not approved. So we've gone beyond our initial implementation of integration with ChatGPT to provide a bit more flexibility. So rather than simply saying, give me a 100-word description about this particular item, we can now dictate which features that we're going to use when we send over the prompt to ChatGPT. So here I've got this concept of a features feature, so I can say that I want to talk about, no, these are cups, so I'll remove that. I want to talk about the material and the volume, and more generally the brand name, category, color, and item name. And then for coffee machines, we'll then go into a different section. Here I want to talk about the cable length and power consumption, as well as the color and the item name and the brand name. And then we've also got some features in here that dictate actually the number of words in the description that I get back, and even the tone, whether that's professional or marketing or some other different style that you want to get back in terms of the description. Go back to my list here. Generate description for all of these items. So these 5 items have been sent through from the grid to the action, and then the action will then loop through, pulling through the relevant information based on the values for those features, submitting that to ChatGPT, getting that response back, and then within that API loop, updating the item, meaning that we'll start to see these come through one by one. We've got 4 of the 5 that have come through. A nice touch is that we've also instructed the AI to mark up our response in HTML, which means we can plug this straight into our e-commerce site as marked up HTML, or indeed on our data sheets as well. Okay, and conscious of the time, so we will just approve those and look at one more final thing. As soon as I approve those, I expose them further downstream. Here we go. And this ready for Amazon here. We will then look at our final execution action, context action rather. And a similar type of approach, what we're going to do is we are going to then send some information about these products over to the AI and ask for an appropriate classification based on the Amazon product structure for these particular items. And then we'll import that back in, and so we can use that in a categorizer. But what is also interesting is that this particular action is structured in a conversational way. So within the same action, we're then going back to the AI and saying, okay, well, thank you, we've got that classification. Now can you give me X number of keywords for this particular item as well. So the difference there is that these aren't discrete calls to the AI, meaning that it understands the context of what we've just asked, so it knows about the particular product. It has all that information that we've already sent over. We've just simply asked it another question in the way that you typically interact with AIs through the interface. So that's just something I just wanted to very quickly show you in terms of how we've harnessed some of the functionality that's been delivered in recent releases. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. It's
Awesome
always
stuff.
interesting to see what's happening with actions and AI. I think as everybody becomes more knowledgeable, some really cool user cases, useful use cases also pops up. Okay, we're running a bit short of time. I just want to give a quick look into the crystal ball of what's coming for the rest of 2025. As I said in the beginning, we're doing it a bit different this year. We're introducing a summer release. Normally, we only do a spring and a fall release. So this year, we also do a summer release to catch up on some of the things that we unfortunately missed with this first release. Chief among that is notifications. I'm going to give a very quick preview of that in a second. Next one is the import wizard. There's some stuff that we know people will want for this. We want to give you the option to save and load mappings. We want to be able to give you some role-based access to it. And we want some new imports to better validate these filtered values. We're going to add some more fixes to the content store. There are some things we already know now that we want to have fixed in it. Bunch of small updates to the supplier portal, and then we're going to start with this new look for the Perfion web application, which I am actually quite excited about. Going beyond that, we do also have a fall release planned this year. That's going to include some more stuff for the content stores, some more advanced functionality. We hope to continue to push more functionality from the Windows client to the web client, rethink some of it, make it a bit more easily accessible for you guys. Then we're going to build in some AI-powered functionality. So we can already do a lot with actions, but we want to take it a step further and have some things where we can use AI, ChatGPT, etc., to help you with your product enrichments and your product maintenance in stuff that would be awkward to do with an action. Try to have some built-in functionality to work with AI in Perfion. Then we also want to do tasks, so not only notification, but we want to create specific tasks so we can say, hey, user ABC, you need to do this for these products, etc. And then we continue this new skinning of what Perfion looked like. That was now. Then we have the notifications. So just very quickly, we want to give you the option to add comments to items, not just on products, but also on your images, on your colors, on your whatever you had to actually notify other users if there's something they need to be aware of. You'll be able to do this from the grid. Simply right-click and see Add Comments, or do it directly from the item editor, being able to add comments. You'll be able to tag other users just like you do on Facebook, etc., using hashtag and then write the name. And that user will then get notifications in a new notification center we're introducing. So we click up here in the top right corner, you'll be able to see all of the items that you have been notified on. That will include a link to the item you've been notified on. So we click that, it'll be taken directly to the item editor and see what they wrote and what you need to do on that item. You'll also get an email. So if your colleague who doesn't read your message immediately, they'll get an email with a catchment saying, hey, there's something you need to do here. And you can click there and going to be taken directly to the product. If you don't want these emails, you can disable the email notifications on your own user settings. Yes, that was just a very quick look into the crystal ball. Jan Franke, we have a couple of things that has been deprecated in this release.
That is right. So I'll try and keep it ultra short then, and then maybe only focus on this release. So for as part of upgrading to the 25R1 release, we are requiring a minimum of SQL Server 2016. So put in other words, we are deprecating our support for SQL Server 2014. So to upgrade, you need to be on any version of SQL Server 2016 or newer. And then we are deprecating support for the Shopify connector version 1, And then obviously the migration path is to upgrade to version 2, which is a technical upgrade. You can say it's included in your licensing, existing licensing already. So yeah, reach out to your partner or technical people to get that. And then I think we'll skip the next slide, which is the future releases. Oh, if you go one back, then I just want to highlight the bottom line there. There is a page on our knowledge base where all these deprecations are being described in a little bit more details. So you can go in there and follow that page. There's a small button, and you get a notification when we update this page.
Yep. Very good to know. That was all the singing and dancing we had planned. If you have any questions, we can stay for a few minutes extra, I think. Otherwise, I want to say thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Not a lot of questions on me.
Not a lot coming in. That's fair. Many people probably have a day off. Okay, I think we'll cut it off then. Thank you so much for joining us. We're pleased to do this. It was fun for me. Yeah, great. See you guys.
Likewise.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.